Hey there. Tonight we're gathered around an imaginary fire. It's flickering light dancing across old family photos on the wall. Faces faded but stories untold. You can smell the faint dust on the frames, hear the crackle of burning wood, and feel that cozy, familiar warmth of family memories. But there's a heaviness too, isn't there? Family ties, they're like a blanket, warm yet sometimes stifling, and tonight we're going to unravel their threads. You might survive this story, but if old family grudges bubble up, don't blame me. Blame that jar of sunscreen made from crocodile fat your aunt swore was the secret to long life. So, before you get comfy, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely vibe with what I'm doing here. Let me know where you're at, what's the local time, New York at midnight or Sydney at dawn. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft in the background, and let's start tonight's journey together. You're sitting in your favorite chair, the one with the worn armrest that creak when you lean back, and you're thinking about family, not the glossy, perfect version from holiday cards, but the real, messy tangle of love and grudges that shapes who you are. Family ties are the threads that hold you together as you age, but they can also pull tight, leaving knots in your heart. You've seen it, haven't you? The way an old argument with a cousin can still sting decades later, or how a parent's approval feels like a warm blanket even when you're gray-haired. These connections, they don't just fade with time. They carve grooves in your mind, affecting how you face the years ahead. Mental health in old age isn't just about staying sharp. It's about carrying these relationships lightly so they don't weigh you down. Picture yourself at a family reunion, the kind where someone's always arguing over who makes better potato salad. You're watching your uncle, now in his 70s, still bitter because his brother got the bigger share of their parents' farm back in the 80s. That grudge, it's like a pebble in his shoe, small, but it makes every step ache. You wonder if he'd sleep better if he let it go, if his heart would feel lighter. Historically, families didn't just live together for survival. They were the first line of care for their elders. In medieval Europe, for instance, multi-generational households were the norm. Grandparents weren't shipped off to nursing homes. They were kept close, their wisdom valued, even if their tempers weren't. But here's a quirky detail. In some medieval villages, elders were given a special seat by the hearth called a grandfather's chair, where they'd tell stories or settle disputes. Imagine you're sitting in one now, feeling the warmth, but also the weight of every unresolved spat. You're walking through your own memories now, aren't you? That time you didn't call your sister back because she borrowed your favorite jacket and never returned it. It's funny how these little things stick, like crumbs in a keyboard. But carrying that resentment, it's like sipping a tiny bit of poison every day. By the time you're old, it's not just your joints that ache. Scholars still debate whether forgiveness actually extends life expectancy, with some studies suggesting it lowers stress hormones, while others argue it's just correlation, not causation. You're not sure who's right, but you know holding on to anger feels like carrying an extra bag of groceries up the stairs. Doable, but why bother? You try to picture a better way. Maybe you write a letter to that cousin, not to rehash the fight, but say, "Hey, remember when we used to sneak cookies from Grandma's jar?" You don't send it, but just writing it feels like loosening a tight knot. Or maybe you call your dad, ask about his day, and really listen, even when he rambles about his neighbor's dog. These small acts, they're like oiling a squeaky hinge. They keep things moving smoothly. You're not erasing the past, but you're making space for something softer. And here's a little chuckle for you. Ever notice how family fights always seem to flare up over food? Like, who gets the last slice of pie is somehow a referendum on your worth. You laugh. But you're already thinking about that Thanksgiving where the turkey wasn't the only thing getting carved up by sharp words. As you sink deeper into your chair, you realize mental health for the elderly isn't just about crosswords or meditation apps. It's about untangling the emotional threads that tie you to others. You can't choose your family, but you can choose how to carry them with you. Maybe it's time to let go of that one grudge, the one that feels like a splinter under your nail. Or maybe you just start small with a kind word, a shared laugh. You're not fixing everything tonight, but you're starting to see how those family ties, when handled with care, can be the scaffolding that holds you up as you age. You're still in that creaky chair, the one that knows all your secrets, and the fire's glow is a little softer now, casting long shadows that dance like memories across the room. You're thinking about your siblings, those people who shared your childhood, your secrets, maybe even your old bunk bed with the wobbly slats. They're the ones who know exactly how to push your buttons, because they installed half of them. Sibling dynamics, they're like a lifelong tug-of-war. Sometimes you're pulling together, sometimes you're yanking so hard you both fall over. And as you age, those ties can either anchor you or trip you up. You're wondering how those rivalries, those moments of support, shape the piece you carry into your later years. Picture yourself at 12, racing your brother to the last scoop of ice cream, both of you shoving and giggling until the bowl tips over and you're both grounded. Fast forward 50 years, and you're still teasing him about it. But now there's a warmth in the memory, a glue that holds you together. Or maybe it's not so rosy. Maybe you're still sore about the time your sister got the promotion you wanted, and her smug smile at the family dinner still stings. Those moments, they don't just vanish. They pile up like old magazines in your mind, cluttering your mental space. In ancient Rome, siblings often had defined roles. Eldest sons inherited. Younger ones served as advisors or soldiers. This structure kept families tight, but also bred competition, not unlike your own family's unspoken race for who's doing better at life. You smirk, thinking how your sister's fancy car doesn't make her soup taste any better than yours. You're walking through a memory now, one where your brother helped you move into your first apartment, hauling boxes up 3 flights of stairs without a single complaint. That day, you felt like a team, like you could take on the world. But then there's that other memory, the one where you didn't speak for a year because of a misunderstanding over money. It's funny, isn't it, how siblings can be your biggest cheerleaders and your fiercest rivals, sometimes in the same breath? You're starting to see how those dynamics shape your mental resilience. When you lean on each other, it's like a sturdy handrail on a steep staircase, there when you need it. But when you're at odds, it's like walking with a rock in your shoe, wearing you down over time. Here's a curious tidbit. In some ancient cultures, like among the Inca, siblings were sometimes paired in ceremonial roles, like co-rulers to balance power. Imagine you and your sister trying to share a throne. She'd probably demand the comfier cushion. You chuckle, but it makes you think maybe balance is a key, not erasing the fights, but finding a way to laugh about them. Scholars still debate whether sibling rivalry boosts or harms mental health in old age. Some say it keeps you sharp, like a mental sparring match. Others argue it raises stress levels, chipping away at your peace. You're not sure who's right, but you know holding on to that old grudge feels like carrying an extra backpack on a long hike. You're picturing a different path now. Maybe you text your brother, not to rehash the past, but say, "Hey, remember that time we broke Mom's vase and blamed the dog?" You both laugh, and suddenly the air feels lighter. Or maybe you just listen when your sister brags about her new job, nodding instead of rolling your eyes. These small gestures, they're like sanding down the rough edges of a wooden table. Smoother, easier to live with. And here's a little joke for you. Why do siblings always fight over the remote? Because whoever controls the TV controls the universe, or at least the living room. You grin, thinking about how those battles never really end, just change channels. As you settle deeper into your chair, the fire's warmth wrapping around you like a familiar hug. You realize sibling relationships are a dance. Sometimes you step on each other's toes. Sometimes you move in sync. The key to inner peace as you age isn't cutting them out or winning every fight. It's learning to sway together, even when the music's off-key. You're not fixing every riff tonight, but you're starting to see how letting go of old scores, or at least laughing about them, can make the years ahead feel lighter, like shedding a heavy coat. Your mind drifts to your parents, those figures who loomed so large when you were small, their voices still echoing in your head even now. Parent-child bonds, they're like roots, anchoring you deep in the earth, but sometimes they twist, making it hard to move. You're thinking about how those ties, built on love, expectation, or even distance, shape your mental strength as the years pile up. It's not just about whether you call Mom every Sunday. It's about carrying her laughter, or maybe her silences, into your older days. Imagine you're at the kitchen table, your dad across from you, stirring his coffee with that same chip mug he's used for decades. He's telling you about his old job, the one he hated but stuck with for you and your siblings. There's pride in his voice, but also a flicker of regret, and you wonder how much of his life he gave up for you. That thought, it sits heavy, doesn't it? Like a book you meant to read but never opened. In traditional Confucian societies, like ancient China, respect for parents was non-negotiable. Elders were revered, their words law, even when they were wrong. You smile, thinking how your mom's, because I said so, wasn't far off from that. But those hierarchies, they built stability, a sense of duty that kept families tight, even if it meant swallowing your own opinions like a bitter pill. You're walking through a memory now, one where you were 16, slamming your bedroom door because your parents didn't get you. Maybe they didn't let you go to that concert, or maybe they pushed you toward a career you didn't want. That old resentment. It's like a stubborn stain on your favorite shirt, faint but still there. But then there's that other memory, the one where your mom stayed up all night, sewing your costume for the school play, her fingers pricked but steady. Those moments, they balance each other, don't they? You're starting to see how mutual respect, not just duty, builds a bridge between you and your parents, one that holds strong as you age. Without it, you're walking a tightrope with no net. Here's an odd little fact. In ancient Egypt, children sometimes dedicated small statues to their parents as offerings for their health in the afterlife. Imagine you carving a tiny figurine for your dad. Though knowing you, it'd probably look more like a lumpy potato. You chuckle, but it makes you think respect isn't just about obedience. It's about seeing them as people, flaws and all. Scholars still debate whether strong parent-child bonds directly correlate with longer life. Some say the emotional support lowers blood pressure. Others argue it's more about cultural expectations and biology. You're not sure, but you know that when your mom calls and you actually listen, it feels like a weight lifts, even if she's just complaining about her neighbor's loud lawnmower. You're picturing a small change now. Maybe you ask your dad about his childhood, not just the big stories, but the little ones, like what games he played or what scared him as a kid. Or maybe you just sit with your mom, no phones, just the two of you sharing a pot of tea. It's not about erasing old hurts. It's about building new memories, ones that feel like a warm scarf on a cold day. And here's a quick laugh for you. Ever notice how parents always think their advice is gold, but when you try it, it's like following a recipe for disaster? Like, just talk to your boss. Yeah, mom, because that's how promotions work. You grin, shaking your head. As the fire's warmth seeps into your bones, you realize these bonds aren't just about the past. They're scaffolding for your future. Respecting your parents and yourself means letting go of old scripts, rewriting them with patience. You're not solving every family tension tonight, but you're starting to see how a kind word, a shared story, can steady you for the long haul, like a hand drill on a winding stair. Your thoughts drift to your partner, the one who's seen you at your worst, bedhead, bad moods, and all, and still sticks around. Or maybe you're picturing a future partner, someone who will share the weight of your days. Spousal support is like a well-worn jacket. It fits just right, keeps you warm, but sometimes you forget how much you need it until the wind picks up. You're wondering how this bond, this partnership, can be a cornerstone for your mental and physical health as you age, a steady hand to hold through the years. Picture yourself on a quiet evening, sitting on the couch with your spouse, the kind of night where you're both too tired to talk, but too comfortable to move. You're sharing a bowl of popcorn, laughing at a bad movie, and it hits you. These moments, they're the glue that holds you together, but it's not always easy, is it? There's that memory of fight over something dumb, like who forgot to pay the electric bill, and the silence that followed, heavy as a wet blanket. In medieval Europe, marriages were often less about love and more about alliance, a contract to ensure survival. Couples worked side by side, not just for romance, but to keep the household running, a partnership that carried them into old age. You smirk, thinking how your partner's obsession with organizing the fridge feels like a modern version of that. Teamwork, even if it's just about yogurt placement. You're walking through another memory now, one where your spouse stayed up with you when you were stressed about work, just listening as you rambled. That quiet support, it's like a lifeline, steadying you when the world feels wobbly. But there's also that time you both got so caught up in your own routines, work, kids, bills, that you forgot to check in with each other. It's funny how you can live with someone and still miss them, like ships passing in a foggy harbor. You're starting to see how a strong partnership isn't just about grand gestures. It's the small ones, making coffee, sharing a glance, that build a foundation for longevity. Without that, you're just two people sharing a roof, not a life. Here's a strange tidbit. In ancient Viking culture, couples sometimes exchanged swords during wedding vows, symbolizing mutual protection. Imagine you and your partner swapping kitchen knives. Though knowing you probably argue over who gets the sharper one. You laugh, but it makes you think. Support isn't just about being there for the big moments. It's about guarding each other's peace. Scholars still debate whether spousal support directly impacts lifespan. Some studies show it lowers stress and boosts immunity, while others say it depends on the quality of the relationship. You're not sure, but you know that when your partner squeezes your hand during a tough day, it feels like a little extra air in your lungs. You're imagining a small shift now. Maybe you plan a date night, nothing fancy, just a walk where you talk about dreams, not to-do lists. Or maybe you just say, thank you for the little things, like how they always know when you need a laugh. It's not about fixing every flaw in your relationship. It's about tending to it, like watering a plant so it doesn't wilt. And here's a quick chuckle for you. Why do couples always bicker over thermostats? Because one of you is apparently part polar bear, and the other's living in a sauna. You grin, shaking your head at how true it is. As the fire's embers pulse softly, you realize a partner isn't just a companion. They're a co-pilot for the journey of aging, supporting each other through the mundane and the monumental. Builds a kind of strength that carries you both forward. You're not rewriting your love story tonight, but you're starting to see how those small acts of care, those moments of connection, can make the years ahead feel less like a climb and more like a shared adventure, like walking hand in hand down a familiar path. Your mind wanders beyond the immediate circle of parents, siblings, and partners, stretching out to the wider web of family, cousins, aunts, uncles, and the neighbors who feel like kin. These extended ties, they're like the roots of an old tree, sprawling far and wide, grounding you even when you don't notice. You're thinking about how these connections, the sense of community, can lift your spirit as you age, like a safety net woven from shared stories and familiar faces. Picture yourself at a family barbecue, the air thick with the smell of grilled corn and laughter. Your cousin's telling that same embarrassing story about the time you got stuck in a tree. Yeah, you were 10, but they'll never let it go. Across the yard, your aunt's teaching your niece how to braid hair, and the neighbor who always brings pie is swapping recipes with your uncle. It's chaotic, messy, but it feels like home, doesn't it? These gatherings, they recharge you, filling your heart with a warmth that lingers. Long ago, in West African villages, elders were central to community life, often living in compounds surrounded by extended family. They weren't just cared for. They were storytellers, mediators, the glue that held everyone together. You smile, thinking how your grandma's still the one who settles every family debate, even if her solution is just eat more pie. You're strolling through a memory now, one where your cousin drove an hour to fix your flat tire, no questions asked, or when your neighbor checked on you during a storm, bringing soup like it was no big deal. Those moments, they're like bricks in a wall, building a sense of belonging that keeps you steady. But there's also that time you felt left out, like when a family group chat buzzed with plans you weren't invited to. It stings, like a paper cut you didn't see coming. You're starting to see how community isn't just about proximity. It's about feeling seen, valued, even when you're the odd one out. Without that, you're like a plant in shallow soil, struggling to thrive. Here's a quirky fact. In some Pacific Island cultures, extended families will hold feasts where elders were served first, a sign of respect that also ensured it got the best food. Imagine you sneaking your uncle an extra slice of cake before the kids dive in. Though knowing your family, they'd probably start a riot over frosting. You chuckle, but it hits you. These rituals, they're not just tradition. They're a way to say, you matter. Scholars still debate whether community ties directly boost mental health in old age. Some say the social engagement keeps your brain sharp. Others argue it's more about reducing loneliness than measurable cognition. You're not sure, but you know that when your cousin texts just to check in, it's like a small spark in a dark room. You're picturing a small step now. Maybe you call that and you haven't spoken to in years. Not for anything big, just to hear her voice. Or maybe you invite your neighbor over for coffee, swapping stories about the old days. It's not about forcing a big family reunion. It's about tightening those loose threads one at a time. And here's a little laugh for you. Why do family gatherings always end with someone breaking out the karaoke machine? Because nothing says we're family like butchering a classic song together. You grin, remembering that time your uncle tried to hit the high notes and sounded like a cat in distress. As the embers fade to a soft red, you realize extended family and community are like a chorus, sometimes out of tune, but stronger together. They're the ones who remind you who you are, who catch you when you stumble. You're not rebuilding your whole social circle tonight, but you're starting to see how reaching out, even in small ways, can weave a net strong enough to carry you through the years, like a warm breeze on a quiet evening. The room feels quieter, more intimate, as your thoughts turn inward, away from the tangle of family ties and toward yourself. You're thinking about self-care, not the trendy kind with face masks and bubble baths, but the deeper kind, nurturing your spirit, finding peace in your own company as you age. It's like tending a garden only you can see, pulling weeds and planting seeds for a calmer, wiser you. You're wondering how these quiet moments of reflection can carry you through the years, keeping your mind as steady as a lighthouse in a storm. Picture yourself on a still morning, sitting on your porch with a cup of tea, the steam curling up like a gentle ghost. The world's hushed, and for once, you're not checking your phone or making a mental to-do list. You're just there, listening to the birds, feeling the weight of your own thoughts settle. It's not easy, is it? Your mind loves to wander, digging up old worries or tomorrow's chores. But in this moment, you're trying to stay present, to let the quiet sink in. In ancient Greece, philosophers like Socrates prized self-reflection as a path to wisdom, urging people to know thyself as the key to a good life. You smirk, thinking how your version of knowing yourself might just be realizing you'll never finish that novel you started writing in your 20s. You're walking through a memory now, one where you felt truly at peace. Maybe a walk in the woods, the crunch of leaves underfoot, or a night when you journaled and the words just flowed. Those moments, they're like a deep breath for your soul, aren't they? But then there's the flip side, the nights you lay awake, replaying mistakes or stressing about things you can't control. It's like your brain's a hamster on a wheel, running nowhere fast. You're starting to see that self-care isn't just about feeling good. It's about building habits, like mindfulness or gratitude, that anchor you when life gets choppy. Without them, you're like a boat adrift, bobbing on waves of doubt. Here's a peculiar tidbit. In medieval Japan, some monks practiced sitting Zen, spending hours in silent meditation to find clarity. Imagine you trying that, only to get distracted by the smell of your neighbor's barbecue. You laugh, but it makes you think. Even a few minutes of stillness can shift something inside you, like dusting off an old mirror. Scholars still debate whether mindfulness practices like meditation measurably improve mental health in old age. Some point to studies showing reduced anxiety. Others say the benefits are overstated without consistent practice. You're not sure, but you know that when you pause to breathe deeply, it's like hitting a reset button on your stress. You're imagining a small change now. Maybe you set aside 5 minutes each day to sit quietly, no distractions, just you and your thoughts. Or maybe you write down one thing you're grateful for, like the way the sun hits your window just right. It's not about becoming a Zen master. It's about carving out a little space for yourself, like clearing a corner of a cluttered room. And here's a quick chuckle. Why do self-care apps always sound so smug? Take a deep breath. Like, calm down, robot. I'm trying to relax here. You grin, shaking your head at how even your phone thinks it knows you better than you do. As the last embers fade, you realize self-care is a foundation for aging well, the quiet strength that lets you carry family ties without breaking. It's not about escaping life's noise, but finding a rhythm within it. You're not transforming overnight, but you're starting to see how small acts of care, like a kind word to yourself, can light the way forward like a candle in a dark room. You're still in that chair, but the world feels slower, gentler, as if time itself is stretching out to give you space. You've walked through family ties, from the knots of sibling rivalries to the steady roots of community, and finally to the quiet garden of your own soul. Each step, Each memory has shown you that aging, well, isn't just about living long. It's about living lightly, with a heart unburdened by old grudges and a mind open to small joys. You picture yourself years from now, gray hair but smiling, surrounded by the people you've chosen to hold close, your spirit calm like a still lake at dawn. So, as you drift towards sleep, let these stories settle, soft as a blanket. You've got this. Your journey's just beginning.